Chris Morrill assumed his duties as Roanoke City Manager on March 1st, 2010. He previously had served as the Assistant City Manager and Budget Director for the city of Savannah, Georgia. From 1999 through 2001, he served as Senior Municipal Finance Advisor to the South African National Treasury. Morrill served from 1992 through 1994 as a U.S. Peace Corps volunteer in the former Soviet Union, where he advised a city in Ukraine on finance and management issues. Morrill received a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from the College of the Holy Cross in Worcester, Mass., and a Master's of Public Administration from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Chris Morrill lives with his wife and 2 sons in Roanoke, where he succeeded Darlene Bertram earlier this year. Chris Morrill, welcome to the interview.
Thanks so much.
First of all, how much did you know about Roanoke before you applied for the city manager's job?
Good question. You know, honestly, very little. That seems to be it with Roanoke. It's kind of a blank canvas. My family and I had visited Claytor Lake several summers, and I think we actually came into Roanoke once.
Okay.
But knew very little about it.
Right. Roanoke really wants to appear on the national screen, and it really has. It's amazing when people get here; they really seem to like Roanoke.
Oh, yeah.
You know, even if they just come for a visit, but it doesn't wind up on the national. It hasn't wind up like a Savannah, Georgia, where you're from.
That's right.
How do you make that leap, Chris? How do you get to that next level where people just know, like they know in Asheville,
which
is probably about the same size as Roanoke. But how do you get to that next level where, oh yeah, Roanoke, that's a cool place to go?
You know, I think part of it is first you make sure that you have something great here, which we do, and I think all of us who live here know that. I think what the regional partnership is doing now with the outdoor branding,
the Roanoke Regional Partnership,
is right on. Because what do we have here? We have this incredible urban environment with mountains and lakes 10 minutes away. And then I think just by doing good stuff, and I think strategically looking outside Roanoke regionally and branding ourselves as a region, working closely with Virginia Tech, working closely with our surrounding counties, where Roanoke can kind of be the hub and that's the spoke. Because our point is not to just get people here, but to stay for 2, 3, 4 days. And we do that by thinking as a region. Chattanooga has done that very well, where they've kind of rebranded themselves as a region.
Right. It's always been a thing here in the area. I've been here about 15 years, where it seems like all the little enclaves like to stay within themselves and maybe not work as closely as they could. And even the fact that Blacksburg is maybe 35, 40 miles from Roanoke, and there have been some efforts lately, the Creative Connectors Group, to bridge that gap. You know, part of it is the geography between the two cities, but to bridge that gap to make it seem like one area. And I guess it's just something you have to keep working on and find ways to pique people's interest.
Yeah, you know, I think our challenge is how do we make the mountains and the rivers, rather than divide, connect, and how do we connect that? And you know, and I get the sense my first 2 months I tried to meet with everybody that I could out here in the region. There's a sense here that people are feeling like, you know, we're at that tipping point. Things are starting to happen. The music industry, with what we're seeing with Carillion, Virginia Tech Medical Center,
and the Research Institute.
Yes, I mean, I think there's just so many things happening. It's just how do we when we reach that tipping point, then really capitalize off of it? And I think even places like Savannah, which when I moved there in the late '80s, was really not well known. People knew the name, but you know, tourism has probably doubled since then.
Right.
You know, the Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil came out, some other things, Paula Deen, Savannah College of Art and Design. But still, you got to capitalize on those things when they happen, and I think we're there.
Yeah,
I think we're there.
And Savannah kind of hitched its wagon a little bit to the arts and culture scene, and that's what Roanoke's been trying to do over the past 10 years. And I guess it's just something you have to build a reputation for, that type of thing.
Yeah, and I think what I see here is it's almost happening more organically here. You don't have a Savannah College of Art and Design that's driving it. You have lots of people doing different things, which I think in the long term may be more sustainable and make it more of a unique, authentic experience here.
You know, you brought up something, and I wanted to ask you. When you first got here, and I know I met you at a meet and greet at the Performing Arts Theater, and what are people, or what were people telling you, Chris, when you first got here, that their biggest concerns were, or that their biggest maybe the things they liked most about Roanoke? But what were you hearing? Was there a theme as to what you were hearing from people about Roanoke?
Yeah, I think what I was hearing is that people here are highly critical. It's nature. You're always more critical of your own community, but maybe even to a greater degree. And, you know, we could have been Charlotte, we could have been Asheville, we could have been Greensboro, and not realizing that you know, we're Roanoke, and that's a pretty good thing to be when you look at what we have here. Other folks are recognizing that this urban design that we have of this compact urban environment, neighborhoods close in, natural amenities is something that people, when they can choose to live anywhere and work on the internet, this is the type of place they're going to want to live in. I think some of the challenges that I heard early on, well, first, you know, financially, everyone's dealing with that in the economy, but then also this idea of we need to collaborate more across governments, across sectors, the private, public, nonprofit, education sectors. But because people are recognizing that, they're starting to address it. So I know everyone I've met with, pretty much to a person, realizes that to succeed in the global economy, we have to collaborate and are willing to do that.
Especially now with money's tight, budgets, one way to make budget stretches, not reinvent the wheel if you're right next door to somebody.
Exactly. And, you know, and if you got a financial crisis, hopefully it pulls people together to make the pie bigger rather than separating us to fight over our own little pieces of the pie. And I think people are getting that.
It's interesting, Roanoke, because you have a group of people that have been here forever, then newcomers, and you have people who want to be a Charlotte or a Greensboro, but then you have people who don't want to be.
Right.
So you have to kind of balance that as far as development and attracting business and all that. So.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, you're right. And I think, you know, the key to all that is you want to be authentic. While we want a growing economy, we don't want to be any town USA. You know, so there's some. Our past, we can grow off on the good things of it, but it's really how do we become a city of the 21st and 22nd century and moving forward. And I get the sense people are getting that, and you know, the community has to determine what are its key values that it wants to keep, what are things that we have to change or improve, and move forward on that.
You were the assistant city manager and budget director in Savannah, Georgia before you came here. How similar are the two local governments, Chris, in the way they operate as far as the relationship with city council and the mayoral system? Are they very similar or very different?
They're both council-manager forms of government. Virginia is pretty much unique in the nation in terms of its independent cities, and then in having elected officials over treasury and revenue and an appointed finance director. So a little different structure. But in terms of, and then also Roanoke doing education and doing social services is different from Savannah, where that was done by the county. But in terms of the people and the main tasks that we have, very, very similar.
Right, because in Roanoke, you're actually hired by City Council, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, okay.
That's correct.
And I guess I wanted to talk a bit about your background. We'll talk about a little bit about this after the break, but I also wanted to, you also co-authored a book on Savannah, The Savannah Story, The Road to Equity and Sustainable Community Development and Economic Development in American Cities. What was that about?
You know, Savannah in the 80s, it had a history like many cities throughout the U.S. where you had underserved, mainly African-American neighborhoods with poor infrastructure and, you know, the inequities of that. I think in the 80s we realized that we needed to relook at that model and really make sure services were equitable, and then the whole community would be better off. So we spent a lot of time on measuring infrastructure deficiencies, looking at neighborhoods, how we could improve them, water and sewer improvements, sidewalks, parks, and realized that only got us so far. And so I actually started something called asset-based community development, where you go into neighborhoods and don't tell them what's wrong with them, but many of them have very rich histories, and to build off of that and the skills that they have in that. And so it was really about building those neighborhoods and then connecting them together back to the core. And so that's really what the Savannah model that I wrote about.
We'll have to take a quick break. My guest is Chris Morrill, City Manager for Roanoke. This is The Interview. I'm Gene Marrano. We'll be right back.